Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and I welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today, we got a pretty interesting show for you guys that we want to get into, but before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, I want to welcome you guys back to the channel. A big Happy New Year's to all of you and all of our returning viewers. So let's go ahead and get into this topic here. Now, funny enough, this show, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. Now, as y'all know, there are a few big names in sports media that are on television. You can think of Chris Broussard, you can think of Nick Wright, you can think of Colin Cowherd, you can think of Shannon Sharp, you can think of Stephen A. Smith, you can think of Skip Bayless, you can think of these guys. But a major trio out there is obviously Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, and Shaquille O'Neal, who will make up the trio, of course, with Ernie Johnson, but who make up the trio on, NBA on TNT, right? And this show, I believe, has been around for, I think, 2 decades now, or at least 15 years or so, right? They've been around for a pretty long time, and I think they've won a lot of different awards, and I think Charles Barkley just signed another lucrative extension, with TNT. So we know this. Now, initially, when Shaq decided to join the show, I believe over 10 years ago, I don't remember the exact date he decided to sign with them. He was pretty much in a position where he could sign with any major network. But the two major networks that ultimately, that it came down to was ultimately TNT and ESPN. And in an article that I got from fadeawayworld.net, Shaq basically explains why he chose to go with TNT over ESPN. So I want to read some of that for you guys here. The article starts off with Shaquille O'Neal gets real about why he chose TNT over ESPN. Shaquille O'Neal's analyst career at TNT has won him quite the plaudits. His insightful analyst of the sport has made him one of the top NBA experts over the year. And quite recently, he revealed why he picked Turner over ESPN for his post-basketball career. The former Los Angeles Laker legend was candid about picking TNT, where he's a household name alongside Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Charles Barkley. The fourth and final episode of his HBO docuseries, Shaq, saw him discuss his retirement and how he planned to chart a new career path as an NBA analyst. Unsurprisingly, he did have offers from multiple networks. He had told the media that he was keen on offering more to the sport. I will miss you, but I plan on entertaining you for the next 19 years, whether it's on TNT, ESPN, CNN. Whoever wants to hire me, my office opens on Monday. Give me a call. And O'Neal eventually received a call, and he set up a meeting alongside with Turner executive David Levi and Steve Koonin, as well as ESPN then president John Skipper. Why did Shaquille O'Neal not join ESPN as an analyst? It appears that O'Neal knew what he was getting into when he signed with TNT. Earlier, ESPN was in the news for the Rachel Nichols controversy. The scandal put both the journalist and the network in the spotlight for the wrong reasons. In his documentary, he spoke about how he picked the network over ESPN and was rather blunt in his statement. My worst day at Turner would be a good day, O'Neal said during Shaq. My worst day at ESPN would cause me to get fired. Ooh. So you heard what Shaq had to say there. Let's unpack what he's saying. I think there's a lot of truth to what Shaq just said. I believe one of the reasons, according to what I remember, apart from money, one of the reasons Skip Bayless left ESPN was because he felt like, I think during that on-air spat that he had with Richard Sherman, he felt like he couldn't go where he wanted to go. Like he would, he had a muzzle on him. And he couldn't really say what he wanted to say because of the strict, controls that ESPN has over its analysts. That's number one. Number two, if you guys remember well, during the Ime Udoka scandal, there was an airing of I believe NBA on ESPN, and it was a pregame show with Jalen Rose, Michael Wilbon, Stephen A. Smith, and Mike Greenberg. And during that show, they were talking, I believe at the time, about Ime Udoka. And Jalen Rose said something. He said the following, and I'm just going to paraphrase for you. He said, "We spent all of this time talking about Ime Udoka, but I want to know why the person that works in the organization that he had a consensual relationship with, why is their identities, or why are their identities not being made public, and we're only up here talking about Ime Udoka?" That's what he originally said. During that same airing of the show, Jalen Rose was forced to go out there and read a statement where he basically apologized for the comments that I just mentioned to you just now, where he said, after going through the facts of the case and this and this and this and this and this, I believe what I said is irresponsible and I apologize. And he even started off saying, "Hi, I am Jalen Rose, blah, 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 blah." And when people saw that, they were like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. What did he say there that was wrong? But he was made to give an apology for just sharing his views on a particular thing. And I think it's a viewpoint that a lot of people would frankly agree with, right? I don't think he said something that was just totally out there, right? So he was forced, to apologize. But if you look at Shaq at TNT, he definitely has more leeway, way more leeway. You've seen Charles Barkley go out there, say some things that were kind of cringeworthy or over the line, and he kind of got away with it. And I think what Shaq is talking about is the pressure to not be too politically correct, too PC. And I think that him knowing himself, it would take away from the performance he would be able to put out on a week-to-week basis when he's on live television, because at the back of his mind, he will be thinking to himself, if I say this, am I going to be forced to make an apology? Could I lose my job? Etc., etc., etc. And I think he saw that he had more freedom to work at TNT or Turner over ESPN, where ESPN is much more constrictive. And as a matter of fact, ESPN, for whatever reason, a lot of the talent that you see on air used to work at ESPN. They no longer do. Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp was there as a guest. Colin Cowherd, I believe, was at ESPN. A few other people. Chris Broussard was also at ESPN. I believe Rob Parker was also at ESPN. All these guys were there, and now they're Fox Sports. So I think what Shaq said had a lot of validity, and there are a lot of examples out there that you can point to that will give his statements, that will give his statement more credibility. So I think he's on the money with that. So what I want to know from you guys is simply this. What do you think about what Shaq had to say? And do you think that he made the right decision ultimately to sign with Turner Media? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we catch you on the next episode. Peace.